Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, you are now tuned into the Investor Show. As always, this is your gracious host, the Prince of Investing, Prince Dykes. Today, we're going to sit back and listen to Jerome Powell talk about this soft landing. We're going to talk about what soft landings are and what Jerome Powell got to say. And does this signal, hey, is this the end of rate hikes? But we got that and so much more live review right here. But if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and make sure.
Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell icon. Hit that like, comment, and share button.
So right here, ladies and gentlemen, we got Jerome Powell. He was down in Atlanta earlier today at Spelman College. Shout out to the HBCU Spelman College. We're going to listen to what he got to say. Jerome Powell. Oh, excuse me, man. Jerome Powell, you know, like I like to call him Uncle Jay here. He is the one who's in charge of the interest rates. You hear about talking about these interest rates going up, down, sideways, crazy, all that other good stuff. But he's going to hit on some good stuff. I already listened to this today, and I want to give y'all some of this with some of my feedback, and as we walk through it as well. He's going to talk about the labor market, price stability in 2022, what happened in 2021, why they're raising interest rates. You know, you see why those, hey, I want to go buy a house, the mortgages are so high, all that good stuff like that. This is the guy who does it. So without further ado, let's roll that beautiful beam footage. Hopefully y'all can hear this. Let me know if y'all can hear this.
Gail, for inviting me here. It's very exciting to be here. And I'm fortunate to have been accompanied from Washington by a very distinguished graduate of Spelman College, class of 1986.
Las
and a
Vegas.
member of
What's
Delta
going on,
Sigma
Kareem?
Theta.
Glad to see you in here. What is it?
My Federal Reserve colleague, Governor Lisa Cook. I'd say there's no greater testament to Spelman's historic legacy than the achievements of outstanding women like Governor Cook.
Talking about
One
Spelman.
part of that legacy is Spelman's tradition of promoting education in STEM. Governor Cook's research highlights the key role of such education in preparing individuals to be inventors and innovators who can generate ideas that will add to our body of knowledge, increase productivity, and generate higher living standards over time. Her work is just one example of how Spelman women continue to make historic contributions in science, the arts, technology, medicine, and other fields. I look forward to our conversation, and I thought I might frame it up first by talking about the Federal Reserve's ongoing actions to promote a healthy economy and how those actions relate to questions that students in this audience might be asking about the future. For example, I imagine students are wondering what kind of job market and what kind of economy you'll be entering when you complete your education. To start, Congress assigned the Fed the dual mandate goals of maximum employment and price stability, and both of these goals are essential aspects of a healthy economy. Congress also gave the Fed a precious grant of independence from direct political control to allow us to pursue those goals without consideration of political matters. Other major central banks in democratic societies around the world have similar grants of independence, and this institutional arrangement has a strong track record of producing better policy outcomes for the benefit of the public. So let me go to the two dual mandate goals, and I'll start with maximum employment. I'm glad to say that by many measures, the conditions in the labor market today are very strong. A couple of years ago, if you go back, the pandemic was receding and the economy was reopening. The number of job openings grew to greatly exceed the supply of people who were available to work, leaving there a widespread shortage of workers. Today, labor conditions remain very strong, and the economy is returning to better balance between demand and supply for workers. The pace at which the economy is creating new jobs remains strong and has been slowing toward a more sustainable level. That gradual slowing has come in part due to the efforts of the Fed to slow the growth of the economy to help reduce high inflation.
Now, you heard him there when he said, hey, when the pandemic, after the pandemic, there was a bunch of job openings, but it was more job openings than there were people. Then he was saying, hey, after the pandemic, as you know, companies are now slowing down, coming to more of a sustainable rate of hiring people. But he just admitted, he just said, hey, This was due to the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. So you can see interest rates have a direct correlation with employment, because when interest rates are low, money is cheap and easy to borrow. When interest rates go up, money is more expensive to borrow, and just about every company in the world holds some type of debt. And when you hold some type of debt, your debt just became more expensive. For prime example, I got a credit card. Overnight, my credit card became more expensive. If you carry a balance, why? Because interest rates have gone up, right? It's great for a saver, not as a borrower. So companies can slow down their expansion when money becomes hard to borrow, and leading back to how it impacts the job market and unemployment numbers. So you see how this stuff ties in.
After declining sharply during the pandemic, the supply of workers has bounced back as people have come back into the labor force and as immigration has returned to pre-pandemic levels. Partly because of that labor force growth, the unemployment rate has edged up over the second half of the year, although it remains historically low at 3.9%. The increase in labor force participation has been particularly strong among women in the prime working years of ages 25 to 54, which surged to an all-time high earlier this year and which remains high and above pre-pandemic levels. Wage growth remains high, but has been gradually moving toward levels that would be more consistent with 2% inflation over time. So real, which is to say inflation-adjusted wages after inflation, are also growing again as inflation declines.
So a major one there, he just said wages after inflation. So people are like, man, you probably seen it tearing up on social media. Man, $100,000 ain't what I thought it was. Six figures ain't what I thought it was, because they're not paying attention to inflation. Like he's hitting on, hey, inflation, wages and inflation rates, is that really increasing, right? Because he's saying the current wages we have today are made based upon a 2% inflation rate. But as you know, starting after the pandemic, we ran a high above inflation. This is why you hear people saying, hey, man, I'm making six figures, but it don't feel like it. Because as inflation goes up, you're losing purchasing power. You got the same amount of money, but you can't buy as much. So this is what's called real, as they're taking inflation, looking at wages and subtracting inflation out of wages. And this is how you come up with this number, talking about wages after inflation is starting to grow again. It's just now starting to grow. So the last 2-3 years where you saw people, man, I'm making six figures, I never made this much money. Yeah, the dollar amount looked good, but they forgot about that invisible tax called inflation. So let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Turning to price stability then, the second part of the mandate, we have a longer run goal of 2% inflation, and after running below 2% for over a decade, inflation increased sharply in 2021 in the United States and in many other countries around the world. High inflation
let's pause it right there, right?
Hardship.
Oh, he said inflation just took off in 2021. Some mysteriously reason, what's going on, my guy Al? He out here supporting. Some mysterious reason inflation took off in 2021. Why do y'all think inflation took off in 2021? Did you forget what we did in 2020 with the $1 trillion triage? Remember all those stimulus checks everybody got and all that money they pushed into the economy during 2020 to avoid a depression and a recession and depression? They pushed all this money into the economy, but they did something else that he's going to hit on later on. This is when you push money into people's hand. This is why in 2021 we're like, whoa, where does this inflation come from? Now we're trying to wring that inflation out. But I want to hit on that when they just said, hey, we don't know, for some reason 2021 inflation just took off
on all households, and is especially painful for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. Beginning in early 2022, we reacted forcefully, raising our policy interest rate and decreasing the size of our balance sheet to help slow the economy and bring down inflation.
Oh, there it is. He just said it, right? But here we go. We got somebody who said their name is Jose. So I'm guessing he's from California. He says wrong, had more to do with supply chains issues, but nice try. If you you could disagree with me. I'll listen to that. But think about it, Jose. We put how many trillions of dollars was pushed into the economy? When you push trillions of dollars in the economy, cope with supply. Yes, we did have supply issues because we had a pandemic going on at the same time. But when you push trillions of dollars into the economy, where do you think that money is going to go? When you give people money, what are they going to do with that money? Right? When you guess what happened? Why do we have a supply chain issue? Let's go deeper. Because when people have more money, it increases the demand. Think about it. Somebody dropped $10 million on me today. I'm going to increase the demand for a bunch of bull crap I don't need. So I'm probably going to start ordering and buying stuff I never needed or used. PPP loans are flooding around. Some people was fraudulent, whatever. Guess what's going to happen? That means stores have to buy more stuff. Home Depot had empty. Why did Home Depot all of a sudden have empty racks? Why did Walmart have empty racks? Why did this? You're talking about the supply and demand, which you're correct. But what increased the demand? Why all of a sudden everybody just wanted to buy a whole bunch of stuff? We just started running short on all this stuff for some reason. People have more money. Why do they have more money? You push trillions of dollars into the economy, it's going to go somewhere. It's like energy. You can't just make money disappear. It's going to go somewhere. Just because it left your checking account, it's in somebody else's checking account. That credit card debt that you're carrying, it might be a debt to you, but it's an income for somebody else. All right. Like I said, I'm always about people who want to come in and test me. Appreciate that. Good comment too. Let's go.
And inflation has now
Oh, my
declined
bad. I
to
forgot to hit on
3%
that.
over the 12.
The balance sheet. What is when he says reduce the balance sheet? Are we going to? Jan Yellen was sitting in this seat. She said we're going to increase the balance sheet. What does it mean when the Federal Reserve said they're going to decrease the balance sheet? They started decreasing the balance sheet. What does that mean? What does that mean for the U.S. economy? He just said we wanted to slow the economy and we wanted to decrease our balance sheets.
12 months ending in October. But if you factor out energy and food prices, which tend to be volatile, you get what's called core inflation. And we look at that too. That is still on a 12-month basis, 3.5%, well above our 2% objective. However, over the 6 months, now looking at more recent data, the 6 months ending in October, core inflation is actually running at about 2.5%. And while these lower inflation readings of the past few months are welcome, they're highly welcome, that progress is going to need to continue if we are to reach our 2% objective. The high inflation that we got beginning in 21 initially emerged from a collision between very strong demand and pandemic-constrained supply. And the normalization of supply and demand conditions that we've seen has played a critical role in the disinflation, the coming down of inflation so far, as has the substantial tightening of monetary policy and overall financial conditions over the past 2 years. The strong actions that we've taken have moved our policy rate up and well into restrictive territory, by which we mean that tight monetary policy is putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation. Monetary policy is thought to affect economic conditions with a lag, and the full effects of our tightening likely have not yet been felt. The forcefulness of our response to inflation also helped.
Okay. So what he just said was all these rates we just raised, we haven't really felt the impact of it because he said it's a lag. So first you raise the interest rates today, you feel it later on. So you have a leading economic indicator and I think a lagging economic indicator too, right? Leading and lagging economic indicator. So he's saying, hey, we raised the interest rates today, but I don't think we felt all the pressure, right? So and he talked about that. Who's this? We were just speaking about. He just touched on this, right? Who's this from California? Thank you for chiming in. He said, no, again, if you print money but can't meet that demand, then there wouldn't be inflation. It would do with people staying home, being unproductive. Okay, we look at the definition of inflation. What is inflation? This is when the price of goods and services increase. So when demand increases, what happens to when demand increases and supply stays the same? What happens to price? Now let's break this down to a real world situation. I own a hamburger joint. I order 50 burgers a month. That's enough. By the end of the month, I maybe sell 48 burgers, or I may sell 50 burgers, right? Now, what ends up happening is once you get done with that, right? Once you get done with raising it up, everything changes. So for prime example, if I order 50 hamburgers a month, right, and I sell these burgers for $5 each, all of a sudden, let's say 100 people come and run into my store and they want burgers. I don't have enough burgers. So now I'm ordering more burgers. What is the store going to do? They're going to raise the price of their burgers to hopefully calm down. Like, hey, if I'm selling these burgers for $5 and they're flying off the shelf, let me move it to $6, $7, $8. So where they came from printing out money, where they came from demand, the problem is you have the price of goods and services increasing, which is the definition of inflation. That's my take. Okay, let's finish up with Jerome here. My wife coming in here, like, hey, come on, Prince, we gotta
maintain the Fed's hard-won credibility, ensuring that the public's expectations of future inflation remain well anchored. Having come so far and so quickly, the FOMC is moving carefully forward as the risks of under and over tightening are becoming more balanced. As the demand and supply-related effects of the pandemic continue to unwind, uncertainty about the outlook for the economy is unusually elevated. Like most forecasters, my colleagues and I anticipate that growth in spending and output will slow over the next year as the effects of the pandemic and the reopening fade and as restrictive monetary policy weighs on aggregate demand. The FOMC is strongly committed to bringing inflation down to 2% over time and to keeping policy restrictive until we are confident that inflation is on a path to that objective. It would be premature to conclude with confidence that we have achieved a sufficiently restrictive stance or to speculate on when policy might ease. We are prepared to tighten policy further if it becomes appropriate to do so. So we're making decisions meeting by meeting based on the totality of the incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation, as well as the balance of risks. And that's an overview of what my colleagues and I at the Fed are working to accomplish. The bottom line, if you're a student, is that we've made considerable progress in reducing high inflation while maintaining a strong labor market with a lot of opportunity for new graduates. The unemployment rate has moved up a bit, but it's still very low by historical standards, and by many measures, it's a great time to start your career. You'll face challenging decisions soon about what professions to enter and what companies and other institutions to work for. Of course, some of you will become entrepreneurs, but each of you has already made one really good decision, and that's coming here to Spelman. Whatever opportunities and challenges emerge, education will continue to be a key to success. Higher education is an investment and not just of money. You're investing your time and great effort to gain knowledge and skills that are preparing you for successful careers. Your success will make for a stronger economy. For our part at the Fed, we're doing our best to foster an economy that gives you the best opportunity to succeed. And with that, I will hand it back to you, President Gale. Thank you.
All right, so that's the end of his note. What's going on, B Grizzle? Oh, Grizzle, I can't keep pronouncing your name. But yes, so here he's talking about a soft landing. The key takeaways here, they're saying that, hey, they want inflation to be down to 2%. They're looking at inflation right now is at 3%. They're not raising the interest rates because they feel as though the interest rates that they have already raised, that they don't want to overdo it. They want to sit into the economy first, let it go out through the economy, see if it cools off inflation, because they see inflation cooling off and topping before they're going to raise interest rates again. So the whole thing is they don't want to overdo inflation, because if you overdo interest rates, that could lead us into a recession or whatever. But if you underdo it, inflation goes out of control. So they're sitting back watching this. Why would you care about this? Because we know short-term interest rates will be high. Now, some people talking about, oh, they're going to cut. They're going to start. I don't see cutting in the close future unless our inflation just shoots down, way down. Why would they cut interest rates when inflation is 1% higher than what they wanted at? So unless inflation just starts falling off the map, then we're going to keep at these high interest. Well, these are not really high if you look at the 20, 30-year chart, but we're going to keep at these current interest rates, and they're going to play it by eye. They don't want. This is where they get that terminology of a soft landing. Alan Greenspan made this famous back in the 90s of a soft landing, where he lowered interest rates. He cut interest rates right enough and the economy took off. So you're right in that sweet spot where you don't want to wreck the economy, but you don't want the economy to get out of control. So when you look at Paul Volcker back in the late 70s, early 80s, he just raised interest rates astronomically to like 20%, put us into a recession, right? And then he started cutting interest rates once we got into a recession. So they're trying to avoid a recession or depression by raising them up high enough, just high enough, but not too low. And that's the soft landing you hear everybody talking about. So the market responded very happy to this on Friday afternoon. Market, I think the Dow Jones ended up like 200 some points once this news came out. So lower interest rates mean the economy does better. Not better, but prices go up, stocks go up, things like that. Money is easier to borrow, stuff like that. Tighter interest rates make things tighter. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday night. I got to get out of here, spend time with the family. But I couldn't let the day go by without at least jumping on here, talking to you guys and girls after I watched Jerome Powell speak. But as always, check us out. Check out that Wesley Learns book series if you haven't done so. Wesley Learns to Invest. Wesley learns about credit. Wesley learns about insurance. And stay tuned for that pre-sale of my 4th book coming out in April of 2024. Wesley learns about real estate with all type of surprises in there. So thank y'all for the support. We hit 49,000 subscribers. Next stop, 50,000. And we crossed over 7 million YouTube views alone. So if you haven't done so already, if you're on YouTube, check us out on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, check us out on YouTube. If you're on that podcast on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. All that other good stuff. Anyway, y'all know my name, Prince Dykes. I'm the Prince of Investing. Until the next video podcast, cartoon, or whatever else crazy y'all see me doing around the globe. Peace. Be safe. I'm out. Thank you.